So Allison.
Yes. Thank you, Simon. I know it's just before lunch, but hopefully this is going to re-energize the panel for the remainder of the day. And instead of everyone being hungry, it's going to get them thirsty, given the topic at hand. No, but in seriousness, over the last day and a half, we've talked about, what does it take to actually transition to sustainable solutions? And we've seen that this is a really complex issue. And we've heard specifically that when it relates to non-communicable diseases, they're on the rise and there's a shortfall in funding. So what we're going to be talking about today, kind of in different parts of this initiative as it relates to the Global Smart Drinking Goals, is how we're not only, I think, filling a part of a gap as it relates to financing, because it's obviously a very big gap, but also doing that by helping to provide support for effective partnerships that will hopefully build more local generation of prioritization around reducing harmful alcohol use, which we know is an important risk factor for the NCDs. There are a range of partners that we've engaged as part of our activities to help strengthen the achievement of the Global Smart Drinking Goals. And I wouldn't call it two-dimensional. It's more of like a four-dimensional spatial diagram if you were to actually look at all of the parties that are layered into providing support for this effort. But one of those is the Anheuser-Busch Inbev Foundation, where I sit. The AB Inbev Foundation was launched just last year, but it's existed for 2 years, but we've been active for about a year and a half now. And we have a $150 million pledge for 10 years from AB Inbev to do a range of things. One is to marshal technical guidance to help support public-private partnerships that are operating around the world, one of which is in Brazil, which Leandra is going to be talking specifically about. The other is to support the independent measurement and evaluation of these activities. Having the foundation as a separate entity from the company to support that was something that we appreciated was critical. And so we're supporting an independent and measurement and evaluation group who's working with local research institutes to both collect, analyze, and to house, as well as to ultimately publish on their own right the results and share and disseminate the learnings from this program. In addition to that, we of course are supporting, based on local decision-making in these city-based programs, different kinds of activities that they are working together to help achieve this reduction in harmful alcohol use. So now I'm going to talk a bit more about what these Global Smart Drinking Goals are, because I think I've been a bit elusive. So there are 4 of them. The first goal that AB InBev had launched launched these goals in 2016, includes a focus on reducing harmful alcohol use by 10% in 6 cities around the world. And the goal was to achieve this by 2020 and to share best practices by 2025. So what Leandra is going to be talking about in Brasilia, Brazil, is one of those case examples. The other work that's happening around the world is in Jiangshan, China, Zacatecas, Mexico, Columbus, Ohio, also in Leuven, Belgium, where I was actually just last week, as well as in, I always forget one, not that it's not important, at Johannesburg, South Africa. How could I forget? So it's a really exciting set of goals and a really ambitious set of targets to achieve this. And what's really unique about how the achievement towards success, how we hope to help kind of support that, is that each of these cities has its own steering committee made up of diverse stakeholders across a range of stakeholders, including AB InBev, but also universities, local government, civil society, coming together to think about how they can work together to achieve this ambitious objective. And I think Johanna said maybe the silver bullet isn't a program, maybe it's not a policy, maybe it is these partnerships through multi-sectoral action, but getting them to actually work within a framework to be successful, that's the challenge, right? That's the challenge of all of this, but also the big opportunity. So the second goal of the Global Smart Drinking Goals is a $1 billion commitment from the company to invest in dedicated social marketing campaigns and programs to change individual behaviors and social norms on drinking. So, this isn't a separate goal, but part of the vision for this is that this would also be tested in these cities around the world. And what the foundation does to help advance that is providing access to some of the best knowledge, resources, and technical guidance, so some of those campaigns can be brought to life in a thoughtful way. The third goal is to ensure that no or lower alcohol beer products represent at least 20% of AB InBev's global beer volume. And so again, this is the goal of the company. Oh, that 20% of AB InBev's global beer volume is represented by no and lower alcohol beer products. And so we talked a bit about where can the company fill a gap around addressing these kinds of issues, and this is something that's being seriously explored as an innovation in this space. Could this be an alternative, right? Could this be an alternative to higher alcohol by volume products that people consume to actually affect their overall consumption patterns? And this is the goal. The goal of the company, but what the foundation is committed to is to better understand whether or not that's the case. Right? What is that? Is that a possibility for the future knowledge of the field and where public health possibility lies? And the last goal, which is not least, is a commitment to place a guidance label on all AB InBev products and beer products by the end of 2020. And not to just place those labels on the products, but to actually increase alcohol health literacy. So we're actually going to talk a bit about health literacy tomorrow for some of those who are part of this forum. But ultimately, it's not just about using these products as a tool for giving the information, but ultimately for giving them the information that they need to process, to understand, and to change their ultimate behaviors and how they engage with the product. So it's a big challenge for the company to place these labels on those products. At the foundation, how we're helping bring this to life is by supporting Tufts University to develop recommendations independently about what that should look like. What does a label look like that can actually help to foster alcohol health literacy, and what is alcohol health literacy? So, I don't know how we are on time, but yeah, we're okay. So, a couple of things that the organizer had asked us to talk about. They asked me very explicitly, what's the value proposition here, right? What is the value proposition for a foundation that's affiliated with a consumer products company? What does it want to do working in global health? So from the foundation's perspective, we're really lucky that we're a separate entity with its own core mission and certificate of incorporation, policies, and procedures. And a result of that, as part of it, we have our commitment to actually driving these partnerships for the purposes of supporting programs and policies that actually ultimately impact the reduction of harmful alcohol use and social and behavior change. So that's our mission. And from my own personal perspective as someone who's a public health, someone who's grown out of public health, I'm mission driven, I took that oath in all of my training, is that this is a really unique opportunity to actually see how the prowess of a company like this could be brought as a force with some of the great expertise in global health and the knowledge base that we know together to see if we can advance the field and better understand the field. So from the company's perspective, I can't speak for the company, but I can speak to what they've said, right, publicly. And what they've said publicly is that the harmful use of alcohol is bad for its consumers. It's bad for government and society at large. And so as a result, it's bad for the company. It's bad for business in the long term. So that's what they say. And in terms of the foundation and helping to drive the internal case for doing this kind of work, which is not an easy enterprise, I think the panel after lunch is going to focus on that, the internal part of all of the inner makings of building a really serious commitment to these kinds of issues, ultimately is first building or trying to foster acceptance and recognition that that's the case, that as the company that's producing it, it is a product that hopefully everyone has a positive experience with it, but that's not the case. It can cause harm, right? It can cause harm. So that acceptance was important. The SDGs that were mentioned previously was really important around the launch of these goals. That framework and that commitment to fostering partnership globally served as an important input into part of the internal alignment that had to be fostered towards this objective. And the third being that there's a lot that's perhaps been done by industry in the past, but a lot of that is maybe based on review, not really moving the needle, right? If we have these objective targets for a 10% reduction, we have to look outward at what has the technical experts and advisors done in this space. What does the evidence base look like? And really harnessing that to inform what the contribution can be. So I think we'll have time for Q&As. That's a high level, and excited for Leandro to talk about what's going on in Brazil.